Okay, so assalamu alaikum everyone who have already joined us on Zoom and also those who will be joining us on YouTube. We're just going live right now as I speak, and we have a special guest here with us who I have actually wrote down his name as Shaykh Idrissi of Seville. That makes you sound more Andalusian, Sheikh. Is that okay with you?
No problem at all.
That's fine. Okay. Right, so Sheikh, we will have people joining us, but we'll wait for another 30 seconds, and then we will start our session, inshallah.
Inshallah.
As we're waiting for our students to join us, we will have a shorter session today. I think it's good to mix up our sessions because sometimes we do go way over and then become an hour and a half. Sometimes they're an hour, and sometimes it's good to have shorter sessions. But also, Sheikh Idrissi, he will be talking to us about his madrasah as well, but also generally the history of Islam in Spain, very, very brief, and mostly for us to reflect over Muslim history of Spain. What lessons do we learn from that period? So in the meantime, as we're waiting, if anyone does have any questions, do put them in the Q&A section so I can clearly see. For those of you who are joining us on YouTube, welcome. You can ask us questions from there as well. Anything to do with Sheikh Idrisi or his madrasa, which he will talk to us in more detail about, and also anything to do with Islam in Spain. So Muslims ruled in Spain for centuries and centuries. We'll learn a bit about that from Sheikh Idrisi of Seville. So Ustad and Sheikh Idrisi, he studied in Darul Uloom Dewsbury, the same madrasa as myself. I graduated in 2005. Well, Sheikh Idrisi, when did you join and graduate? So I joined in 1997 and I finished in 2005.
So, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Walaikum salam.
Regarding myself, I joined, I think, was 2 months before you graduated in
Oh wow.
2004. And
So did you
then
did you remember seeing me there or
I kind of have a picture of you
okay.
and your class, yes.
Okay.
Obviously, I was there for the Bukhari Jalsa.
Mhm.
And then I finished in 2013,
Wow.
Alhamdulillah.
MashaAllah, fantastic. And here you are now in Seville. You've started your own madrasa. So I think we've given enough time for people to join us, Sheikh. So I think let's start. Let's begin. Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. Nahmaduhu nusalli ala rasulihil kareem amma ba'd. So Jazakallah everyone for joining us on Zoom and YouTube. And most importantly, I would like to thank and say Jazakallahu khairan to Sheikh Muhammad Idrisi of Seville. He is joining us all the way from Spain, and he will be talking to us about himself, his madrasa that he is the head teacher of, and also he will finish off with a very few snippets of the history of Islam in Spain for us to reflect over this. Okay, Sheikh. So, inshallah, let's begin by maybe talking about yourself, who you are, what you do, and then moving on to your madrasa. And then I'll bring questions from students to you as well as we.
Inshallah. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah to everyone. The Sheikh said, my name is Muhammad Idrissi. I was born in Cordoba, in Andalusia, but I've been brought up in city of Seville, alhamdulillah. Been there nearly all my life, besides those years that I was studying. Started my studies, Islamic studies in Morocco, and then finished them in the UK, in Darul Uloom, Jamia Ta'lim al-Islam. So, Sheikh Hamid, inshallah, you will be asking questions, right? And I'll
Yes,
be
inshallah,
answering.
yeah. So once you finished from the institute where I also went to, so we were in the same Darul Uloom, same time for 2 months, as you mentioned. So once you graduated from Dewsbury in Yorkshire, what did you do after that?
Right after that, when I came back to Spain, there is the first purpose-built masjid in Spain, in the city of Marbella. Probably many people know about that town more than the city. It's next to Malaga, very famous for tourism. There is a massive masjid over there, built by who is now the actual king of Saudi Arabia. And the imam over there called me to be his the next imam in that masjid. So I spent there a few months, and I used to be taking care of the masjid. But because it's a masjid which is controlled by a government, you are limited in what activities you can take, you can offer to the community, etc. So I decided to leave the place and come back to Seville to start al-Andalusia education, alhamdulillah, which alhamdulillah, it's been now for 7 years. We've been working, alhamdulillah. The beginning, we had only a few students, alhamdulillah. Right now, we have 3 branches, over 200 students, alhamdulillah.
MashaAllah. So just a bit, we'll come back to the madrasa again. So if you can tell us the name of the madrasa, and also how you started it off and how difficult it would have been. But before we move on to that, someone on YouTube called Hassan Ali from Dewsbury is saying, Sheikh, you were an amazing football player. Would you like to comment on that, Sheikh?
Well, many people mention that. Alhamdulillah, we used to kick the ball here and there.
Was that the barakah of Spain that you were a good football player?
Maybe it could be. Especially on those years.
And also, Sheikh,
we won the Euro Cup and the World Cup. So maybe the barakat.
Yeah, absolutely. Fantastic. So Jazakallah for that, Hassan Ali. Moving on, just to answer, so just about where you are from before we go back to your madrasa. Like, are you Spanish? Are you Moroccan? Are you Pakistani? What are you?
Okay. I am Spanish as I'm.
Or do you wish you were Pakistani?
Okay.
Just a joke. So do carry on, Sheikh.
Everywhere. Alhamdulillah. Alhamdulillah.
Okay. So sorry. Do say that again, Sheikh. Sorry about that.
Yes. So myself, I'm Spanish as I was born in Spain, in Cordoba, and my father is Moroccan. I'm Spanish. So my father is from Morocco, from the city of Marrakesh, and my mom, she's from here. My mom, she used to be Christian, and alhamdulillah, she became Muslim. Alhamdulillah, now she's actually one of the teachers at al-Andalusia. Alhamdulillah.
Wow, mashallah, what a legacy, mashallah. And which city is she from in Spain? Where was she born?
She's from a city called Puerto de Santa Maria, which is one of the ports where those boats that went to discover the Americas came from. Yes.
Oh, mashallah, mashallah. What history? So back to, yep. Mashallah, fantastic. So back to your madrasa, Sheikh. You said that you initially were in as an imam in a mosque, but you felt that a lot of your activities were restricted. You couldn't freely and openly do many activities that you wanted to do, because obviously there's so much bureaucracy and policies in place. So you went out to start your own madrasa. So can you tell us about the name of the madrasa, why you gave it that name, and also about the 3 branches that you were speaking about?
Yeah, so the name of the madrasa that founded is al-Andalucia, and officially is al-Andalusia Education, and which means al-Andalusia.
Why did you call it al-Andalusia? Could you give us a bit of history of that?
Yeah, it is just as nisbat to al-Andalus. As you know, the southern.
Sorry, could you explain why you called it al-Andalusia?
Yes. So the southern part of Spain is called Andalusia, right? Which the name comes from the time when the Muslims used to be here in Spain. They used to call it Al-Andalus. So as the madrasa being part of Andalusia and having that nisbat, in Arabic, you say, for example, Al-Andalusi for someone who comes from Andalus, from Al-Andalus, and as madrasa, which is feminine, so you put the ta marbut at the end, Al-Andalusia. So that was the reason for the name.
And why was Al-Andalus called Al-Andalus?
Well, Al-Andalus was called Al-Andalus. One of the narrations which mentioned the reason for that name is that in this land there were some people who were from the original from German, from those lands, and they were quite harsh, and they used to call them, they used to be known as Vandalos, and they were the rulers at the times that Muslims came to Spain. So from Vandalos went to Al-Andalus.
Okay, interesting, interesting. And back to your madrasa, Sheikh. So the three branches, where are they all situated?
So two of them are here in the city of Seville, and one is in a city about, well, in a town about 45 kilometers, 75 kilometers from here.
And what is the name of that town?
Rosiana. It's called Rosiana. Rosiana del Condado.
Nice, very nice. And are there 200 students in each madrasa or throughout all three of them?
Yeah, throughout three of them, about 220. Alhamdulillah.
MashaAllah, fantastic. That's great. Would you like to tell us a bit about your madrasa, when it functions, what time of the week, and what you teach there, and how you teach, so that our students can also benefit from learning about this?
So here in Spain, the Islamic education is very weak, and there is very less places where some kind of Islamic education is going on. Most of the time, and most of the places where something is going on is actually just teaching Arabic, and very less to do with religion. They focus more on the language. You still find other places where some kind of hifz is going on also, but very weak, not organized. So when I came back from the UK, mashallah, in the UK, the Muslims have been working there for many years. All that experience, I wanted to bring it to Spain. So started the kind of like they call it in Arabic the kutab here in Seville. We took a place which was a bar before, and alhamdulillah, we rented it. It's right next to the masjid, so we didn't stay in the masjid itself. We wanted to be independent in a way that we could have our times properly, and not any issues with the Muslims, and the kids have that freedom of thinking this place is mine, and we can do many other things that we will not be able to do in a masjid. It's true that some masajid have like different levels and where they can also be madrasa, but that's not the case with our masjid. There's only one level, and most of it is all used for salah. So alhamdulillah, the beginning we had about 13 students, got over to 18 students. We went like this for all the first year. Is also to mention that majority of the Muslims here in Spain are from a Moroccan background or from North African background, Algeria, Tunisia, places where normally the government takes like the responsibility of this kind of Islamic education, and which normally anyone who would like to take part in this or start these studies, they will do it for free. So this is one of also the reasons why the Islamic education is very weak in Spain, because many people come. We have the people who are Muslims who have migrated. Majority are from these places, and they come with the mentality that actually this kind of teaching, this kind of education has to be for free, and they wait for the government to come and finance these projects. But alhamdulillah, slowly, we showing the parents the results and the importance. We could add more hours, we could add more time, we could, alhamdulillah, people started to pay the fees, so we could pay the bills, the rents and things for the madrasa. The salaries for teachers didn't come until much later, until we also got some help from other organizations, alhamdulillah. But alhamdulillah, slowly things are getting better and better, alhamdulillah. Now, right now we have 6 Islamic classes, alhamdulillah. At the beginning, we had all children were from different ages in the same class. Now we have 7 teachers. Is organized. We have our own books, alhamdulillah, which we have published, which are now we're using, and also they're using it in different parts of the world, alhamdulillah, like Panama and other places, alhamdulillah. So slowly, alhamdulillah, improving. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to accept it, inshallah.
MashaAllah. And that's an important point that you mentioned, Shaykh Idrissi, is that I'm guessing the books that you're writing are going to be in Spanish. So most of South America can then benefit from your books as well, because they're also Spanish speaking. There is Latin.
Yes.
So they're all Spanish speaking, and they can benefit from your book. So I think that's more reason for people, and especially people in England, to support your work and to support the work that you're doing for your madrasah, because it's not just that one building that will benefit. It will be all and many Spanish speaking institutes and Spanish speaking countries.
Inshallah.
Just to let our viewers know that Muslims started ruling Spain in around the, I think, 8th century, 7th to 8th century. And, Tariq ibn Ziyad was one of the early rulers who went in, what is now known as Jabal Tariq, Gibraltar. They got into Spain, and it's a long history, and Muslims ruled for centuries and centuries. However, then came towards, I think, the 15th century, where Muslims were expelled, and not only Muslims, people of other faiths as well, so including Jews. They were expelled from Spain, or Al-Andalus, and from there, many of them went to Morocco, many went to Tunis, many even went to the Ottoman Empire, to Istanbul. There were many Jews who were welcomed to Istanbul. There's still synagogues there in Istanbul from that period. So it's only now recently that Islam seems to be taking root again in Spain, albeit in a very different form. So before, up until 1450s, Muslims were a ruling minority. So Muslims were ruling in Spain. However, what happened after the expulsion, Muslims are back in Spain, but in a very different way. Just like Sheikh Muhammad al-Idrissi of Seville is starting his madrasah. They're writing books in Spanish again, and Islam seems to be coming back. And the idea is to benefit the society, benefit the people in the best way we can. So that's what Islam is about. It's a mercy for mankind, whether it's as a governance model or even if it's amongst society. And Islam flourishes in either way. So we'd like to thank Shaykh Idrissi for that. But before we go, we're going to get some summary from Shaykh Idrissi of what happened before Muslims were expelled, when Muslims came in, maybe a few snippets of what happened when Muslims ruled Spain, and then how they were expelled, and maybe a few lessons of reflection from that. So I will leave that to you, Shaykh Idrissi, and then we'll take a few questions before we finish, inshallah.
So making a few comments about the history of Spain. It is interesting to see that at the beginning, when Muslims went in Spain, there were power coming from another continent, even another continent. We're talking about Africa. They came from Morocco, and they spoke another language. But subhanallah, because these people who were ruling here from German origin, they were really oppressing the people. So the people, when the Muslims came, they kind of welcomed them. And when they see the way they treated them, it was a much better way than what they used to feel before. Many of them didn't have a problem. Actually, in only 2 years, the Muslims got to rule could say like what is now Portugal and Spain, besides the northwestern parts where Muslims never entered, and that's where the Christians will come at the end of Al-Andalus. And this was the situation at the beginning. The Muslims were minority. They didn't force anyone to religion, but through the way of ruling, even though even though it wasn't like could say the best period, because at the beginning still was some conflicts between the Muslims and themselves, because the Muslim army came from different parts of the Muslim world. Had some from Yemen, some from Syria, some from North Africa, from the Amazigh, and at the end they start to have some conflict between themselves, who should be ruling, right? And this also teaches us, like, as Muslims, we shouldn't care about where we're coming from. It is very important to see Muslim as an ummah, and there is no difference at all, as the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam says, between an Arab and a non-Arab. The best people are the one who do the best deeds and have taqwa in their hearts. So this was something that Abdul Rahman al-Dakhil, very famous young lad who was running away from the persecution of the Abbasids, comes to Al-Andalus, and he for many years strives to unite the Muslims all together, and he does so, and that's when he starts to build the famous masjid that we still can visit today, the Masjid of Cordoba, where he puts the Darul Imara, as he was now declared as the Amir al-Mu'minin of Al-Andalus. And since then, a very, very fruitful time starts for the Muslims, and who are benefiting the people who are living in those lands. Alhamdulillah, we are proud of that kind of that type of history of Muslims, where even though Muslims will come from other places, they will not take the goods of those lands to take it to other places, no, but they will utilize it to improve the lives of the people of those lands. Even though at that time, we're talking about the majority were no Muslims in Al-Andalus. And it stays like that until at the end of the time of Al-Andalus, that Muslims are only 50%, or even maximum, they say some historians, it reaches to 70%. But through the way the Muslims were treating other people, slowly, other peoples of other faiths started to become Muslims. And we know very famous that convivencia that happened in Spain, and a great example of it in Cordoba, where we had great philosophers and great thinkers from the Islamic tradition and from all other traditions like the Christian and the Jewish traditions. We have in Cordoba one person who's going to study by the hands of the Muslims, who's going to become one of the most important figures in the for the tradition for the Jewish tradition, like is Ibn Maimonides, subhanallah. And like, for example, for the Jewish tradition also, from Al-Andalus, there will come the first dictionaries, the harakat in the Hebrew language, because they had the same issue as the Arabic, but because of the way they used to live together and study together and all live together and all strive for the benefit of the society and for the human kind as a whole, subhanallah, because people from different parts of the world used to come get the knowledge and go back to their places to share what they have learned from that great legacy that the Muslims left here. And that was done because of justice was going on. Justice was given to the people, and they were able to progress as a society, as humans. Then later on starts again when the comfort came to their lives and they started to find everything easy. Slowly, dunya started getting to their hearts and forgot about these kind of things that they made them great once, and they started to fight between themselves for land and for different things which had no meaning, subhanallah. And that's when the Muslims of Spain will split again, and the time of Tawa'if, and they will fight each other, and then the enemies from the north will come and slowly take each kingdom, which were very small kingdoms, subhanallah. At the end, only Granada is left. Granada, which survives because it's helping also the Christians take other places, like for example Seville, very important was taken through the help also of Granada. But whatever, subhanallah, the hikmah of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, at the end, it is all a lesson for us as Muslims. And what happened with Al-Andalus as in a small place like the Iberian Peninsula, later on would happen to the whole Muslim world, subhanallah, how we divided and start fighting about like who is from which place and all different things which have no meaning and keep us away. And we still look at the past and don't think about reviving those things today, subhanallah. So this Al-Andalus is a very important lesson for every Muslim from whatever part of the world he is or she is. And we hope that inshallah, once again, we can be benefiting us as an ummah and whole humankind, inshallah ta'ala.
Inshallah, Jazakallah for that, Sheikh. I've taken a few points, very noteworthy as well. Also, you mentioned Maimonides, so Musa ibn Maimun. He's a very interesting character, especially, I mean, when I was studying at university, I remember reading that for the Jews, Musa, they say that there's no Musa except for Musa ibn Maimun, who comes after the actual Musa. So that's the importance that's given to Moses Maimonides, and he's kind of being influenced by Islamic society, but also Islamic theology. And that's why when we look at Judaism now, a lot of their theology is very Muslim, in the sense that it was influenced by Muslim theology and Muslim structures and and culture as well. So even, for instance, Tasawwuf or Sufism influences Judaism quite a lot as well. So even within their spiritual movements, there's a lot of Muslim influence, and that comes through the whole Andalusian path through Musa ibn Maimun or Maimonides. I also read somewhere that after the expulsion, Musa ibn Maimun, he goes to Egypt and becomes one of the doctors for Salahuddin al-Ayyubi, rahimahullah. So that's also an interesting link on how Muslims under Muslim rule, Judaism was allowed to thrive, and Jews were not only allowed to thrive, they were given a lot of high statuses as well. They were allowed to continue their learning, and they flourished together, Muslims, Jews. And as you mentioned, convivencia. So for our students, convivencia is this kind of period in Andalusian history, or Muslim history, you can say, where Jews, Christians, and Muslims were allowed to work together very closely to create a new, beautiful society of tolerance and love amongst each other. Obviously, there were ups and downs, as is normal with any human, endeavor. But as a whole, there was peace, prosperity, and a lot of learning that was taking place. Even Oxford University has its roots in al-Andulicia, because amongst the founders, they went to Paris. They weren't so happy with the learning there. It was all theoretical, it was all book-based. So they were told that, look, go to Spain. So that's where, or Al-Andalus, that's where science experiments were taking place. So when you go to your science lesson next, inshallah, we're after lockdown, and you go into your science lab and you're experimenting with chemicals and things like that, that was something that the Muslims gave to the world. So always remember that. Yes, so Muslims gave that to the world. And it's important for us to now come back to that, to come back to the prophetic teaching, in order for that greatness that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has in store for us. So Jazakallah for that, Sheikh. There was one or two questions that I'll bring up, if that's okay, because I understand that you have your madrasah classes starting very, very soon, and you need a little break in between. There's a question from Fiza or Ibrahim, our young students. They're saying, out of all the countries that you have studied in, which is your favorite country?
Well, to be sincere, once you study in a country, it becomes kind of like part of your home, subhanallah. You feel like you have a special like link with that place, and it's very hard. You have things which you like more in one place, and you like more in other place. It is hard actually to say like something somewhere like I have favorite. But for example, as for England, where I spent 8 years of my life, alhamdulillah, definitely the people who I met and the teachers and classmates and all, mashallah, that environment that there is there is one of the things that I always look forward to see and visit again and again. And I try my best at least once a year to go back and visit those people who are, mashallah, in our hearts.
Inshallah. And also, just to mention, the last time we met was, I think, last year, right? Shaykh Idrissi, we met in person.
Yes,
And on the way back home, there was a police car behind us, which was actually just on, put the siren on and wanted to go past. There wasn't
yeah.
enough space on the left. So as I turned left, we went over the curb. And then all I remember in slow motion was Shaykh Idrissi on the left, his head hitting the roof of my car. Do you remember that, Shaykh?
Yes,
Yeah.
I can
And it
remember
all
that.
happened in slow motion. And then, alhamdulillah, everything was safe. But then when I
But
came out of the
alhamdulillah,
car to
nothing
check,
happened.
alhamdulillah, yeah. And when I came out, the tire was completely flat. It was just destroyed. I couldn't even fix it. So,
Yeah.
and I think this was Christmas Eve, I believe.
Yes,
And
yes.
because the next day we were supposed to have a madrasa bike ride, which I couldn't attend because I think due to backlash, my body was hurting. So I
Subhanallah.
couldn't go on that ride. So, but I still remember that was our last meeting, which was not last year. I think the year before last, in
Yeah,
December.
yeah, like 1.5 years ago.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yes.
So that's another question has come up, Sheikh. How many countries have you studied in, and what was your? Oh, we've done that already, I think. Sorry, how many countries have you studied in, and which one was your favorite? I think the favorite part you've already mentioned, but which countries have you studied in? That's the main question.
Morocco, Spain, and England. I've been also like taking, but like officially studying just those three: Morocco, Spain, and England.
And which others have you kind of been to for Islamic purposes or whatever?
Which other places?
Yeah, which other countries? Yeah.
Well, I've been also to Portugal, to France, Tunisia, Saudi Arabia. Alhamdulillah.
Mashallah. Also, I was going to say any more. Okay, that's brilliant. And would you have any important lessons that you want to finish off with? Any kind of gems that you want to share with our students? Something that they can take away from today's lesson and maybe implement or even think about?
Well, I would just like say that um, for as we're talking about Al-Andalus history, so many things that still today people are coming and are amazed about it, about the arts, about all different things that the Muslims left here, all that science, all that knowledge. That inshallah, let's have this intention that inshallah it will be no more something that we just know as from the past of the Muslim history, but to make it something from this present day, inshallah ta'ala, where people will still look with amaze uh, to what we are doing as Muslims today, inshallah ta'ala. So let's help each other to make that happen as soon as possible.
Inshallah. And hopefully, Al-Andalus, maybe in its spiritual sense and sense of learning and education, will come back to Spain again, inshallah. And Sheikh Idrissi, you could be one of the pioneers and people in the forefront of that, inshallah. And it's very important for us as our madrasa, Fatima Elizabeth, to, inshallah, support our friendly madrasa, al-Andalusia, in Seville as well, inshallah. And we'll always be working together whenever we can. Sheikh, how did you find out about Fatima Elizabeth front history?
Well, through Sheikh Hamid,
Ah,
tabarakallah, doing the very good work, mashallah.
that's brilliant.
May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala accept it.
Inshallah. And as you remember, we were supposed to visit your madrasa actually last month, and we were supposed to. We had a trip that we planned. There were going to be about, I think, 30 or 40 of us, between 30 and 40. We were going to meet you in person, but because of the whole coronavirus thing, that was cancelled. But inshallah, we can try once all of this is over, depending next year or maybe the year after, and we'll
Definitely.
get to see you in person. So all the students who are with us now, if you want to see Sheikh Idrissi in person, you can join us for our
More
trip,
than welcome.
inshallah.
More than welcome, inshallah ta'ala.
And we'll also get to meet some of your students if that's possible as well, inshallah.
Definitely. Yes,
Inshallah.
definitely.
Okay. Jazakallah, Sheikh. I'd like to take this opportunity because I'm very aware that you've got classes starting in the next few minutes. I'll carry on for another 5-10 minutes with our students. Jazakallah for your time, Sheikh. Jazakallah. All the students are thanking you, and they want to see you again, not just this once. So they want to see you maybe in a few more online sessions, inshallah, where you can
Inshallah.
talk about something else that you like. Jazakallahu khairan, Sheikh, for your time. You're very, very busy. Once again, Jazakallah. May Allah reward you. Assalamu
And
alaikum wa
I would
rahmatullahi.
I would just add, inshallah, for the people to make dua, inshallah, that we are organizing the first Islamic International Congress for Spanish speakers throughout the world, inshallah. It's
MashaAllah.
starting on Monday, inshallah ta'ala. We're having, alhamdulillah, speakers from throughout all the Spanish speaking world. We also have a Tajweed competition with people representing their countries. We also have competitions in Islamic arts, in poetry, and in photography. So make dua, inshallah, that Allah makes it successful, inshallah, and beneficial to all, inshallah.
Inshallah. Do you send me a link for that, Sheikh? So if any of our students or parents want to join that, then they're more than welcome. We will share that on our social media as well, inshallah. So do
Definitely.
share that with us. Jazakallahu khairan. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa
Alaikum
barakatuh.
salam.
Assalamu
Jazakallah.
alaikum. Okay, and as for our students, I'll be here for another few minutes if you have questions. Ustad had to, so Shaykh Idrissi has to teach his own students in the next 10 minutes or so. So that's why we didn't have that long period. But don't worry, there's a few things that I wanted to talk about in regards to what Shaykh Idrissi was saying. And coming back to something that I learned from Moses Maimonides, who, despite being Jewish, has been influenced by Islamic teaching quite a lot. And there was one thing that I remember when I was at university, I studied I studied the Abrahamic faiths. So that meant Islam, Judaism, Christianity. We also looked at the concept of convivencia, which took place in Al-Andalus, where Jews, Christians, and Muslims worked together to create this beautiful, tolerant society and civilization in Al-Andalus. And Al-Andalus, was known as the jewel of the world because of because of what it had achieved throughout the world. And if you wanted to be amongst the greatest of students and scholars and learners, you would go to Al-Andalus. So just one point I wanted to mention, actually, which I thought I'll mention now, is Moses Maimonides. So his actual name is Musa ibn Maimun, who was Jewish, and he's like one of the greatest scholars within Judaism. He, in one of his writings, very interesting, he writes that how do you praise God? How do you praise Allah? Right? How do you praise Allah? And for him, he said, according to him, there were no words. We cannot use, our language is insufficient to praise Allah. Okay, our language is insufficient to praise Allah. So how do we praise Allah? So Moses Maimonides used to say, silence is praise to thee. Right? So Moses Maimonides said, silence is praise to thee. And this is very interesting because if you look at it from a Muslim perspective or Muslim theological, and I think he was very much influenced, even in that statement, by Muslim worship and Muslim theology. Because if you look at our salah, for instance, okay, so we have 5 times salah, and if we are reading with congregation in the masjid, we see, for example, for Fajr, the Imam reads out aloud, okay, and everyone listens to his recitation. Then comes Dhuhr, Asr, 2 prayers where the Imam doesn't recite out aloud, he stands in silence. And that silent reflection is like is basically the praise of Allah. Okay, and this is an interesting thing that I found, and it kind of gave me an idea of why maybe sometimes in Salah the Imam reads aloud and sometimes it's silent. This is one way of looking at it, and I came across this through Moses Maimonides or Musa ibn Maimun. And even now, if you go to Cordoba or Cordoba, you can see like a statue of him. There's also a synagogue nearby where you can go, and also there's like a little museum showing all of this. But most importantly, what I wanted to mention was Islam has influenced Judaism in many ways, which is quite interesting. So sometimes, when you go to, I remember when I went to Masjid al-Nabawi in Medina, there's a few people sitting here and there. They always say, look, the certain type of spirituality or Sufism is wrong because it was influenced by the Jews. But actually, if you look at it historically, that wasn't the case because Islam was influencing Judaism, and Islamic spirituality was influencing Jewish spirituality. And if you, I've actually done a few essays on this as well. I've done a few articles on comparing the Hasidic tradition and the Sufi tradition and the similarities between the two. Um, right. Okay. Yes. So that is that. I'm just looking at some of the comments. Anything else? Zahra, you want to say something once we finish? Yes, do put it down in the chat, because if we enable the mic, it'll take really long. So please do put it down in the chat, and I will. Okay, I think that's it. A couple. So Zahra is mentioning that a couple of days ago I was watching a video on Ilmfeed and Shaykh Idrissi was on it, and I knew that I remembered him from somewhere. Can I share the link so you could fully show? Yeah, absolutely, we could do that, inshallah. So if you actually, if you get your mum to share it on the staff group, that way it will be quicker and easier, because from here it will get deleted. Right, any other questions before we stop our session here? We did have a shorter session, but again, reflection doesn't always have to be an hour. It could be less, it could be more as well at times. But this is the important thing. I wanted to bring Sheikh Idrissi in because Muslims ruled Spain for approximately around over 700 years. Um, and as Sheikh Idrissi alluded to, the point that there were two things, right? There were two things that brought down the Muslims into Spain. There were many, many more, but you can look at two as the main features that brought down the Muslims in Spain. Number one, when Muslims took over many parts of and many cities in Spain and many towns, they were good until they fell into luxury, okay? And they began to just care about their luxurious lives and just, they wanted to live in ease and with peace, and, not have that sacrifice that they did in the initial stages of the conquest of Al-Andalus. So the luxurious life, and Ibn Khaldun, who I always bring up, he talks about this quite a lot in his Al-Muqaddimah. So do try and find out more about the Muqaddimah. Try and read the Muqaddimah, even the abridged version that you can get on Amazon. It's a difficult read, okay, especially for our students, but it's a fascinating read. So he talks about the concept of al-asabiyya, but his main argument in the entire book is that when Muslim rulers, when they were Bedouins, when they lived in desert landscapes, they used to live very hard lives, very difficult lives, and challenging lives. And then after that, when they used those skills of the difficult and challenges that they lived, and they were able to overtake many metropolis or cities, they then used to build palaces. And then after building palaces, they used to get weaker and weaker because they used to get so used to luxury. They could no longer take hardship, and that would have an impact in general on their lifestyles and the lifestyles of the civilians, and also the armies and everything else. So falling into luxury, okay, that's one thing. The second thing Ustad was mentioning, that once Muslims were in place, there was a lot of infighting. So Muslims began to fight amongst themselves. And that's what caused the actual decline. And Sheikh was mentioning that obviously you had the main centers in Cordoba, but then came many ta'ifas. So remember that taifa is basically like very small rules. So you'll have like a town over there having its own king. You'll have another smaller city having its own king. You had hundreds and hundreds, yeah, many, many of those, the taifas. And if you're divided into small pieces, okay, then it's very easy for the enemy to come and overtake you, right? The divide and rule concept. So what the Christians were doing, they were taking help from the main king in Cordoba, Muslim king, to take over all of the small ta'ifas one by one. Okay, so they were getting help from the Muslim king to take over the smaller ta'ifas, right? And ultimately, what happened as a result, all of them were taken over, and only that one place was left in Granada. Only Granada was left. And because only Granada was left, it was very easy to overtake Granada. And that's what happened. Finally, the king was expelled as well, and all the Muslims were expelled, and people of other faiths, including mainly Jews as well. So that's the main thing. Zahra's asking, can I mention the name of the book? Yes, it's Muqaddimah Inshallah, I will put that up somewhere in the comments and stuff. Maybe even a link to the Amazon version. So Muqaddimah is the book. There are other books that talk about Ibn Khaldun, which are interesting as well. It depends on how interested you are by Ibn Khaldun. So you might want to watch some YouTube videos on Ibn Khaldun. Because remember, Ibn Khaldun also travels to Al-Andalus as well, towards the end of the empire. And then also Ibn Khaldun also is there at a time when the Black Death comes out, which is the virus at the time. So it's an interesting read, definitely. Okay, so what I will do now, inshallah, I will wrap up. And we do have two more sessions today. One is the fiqh session, and we also have the scout session. Both these sessions will be at the same time. Make sure you join. Do watch out for the WhatsApp links that we send out regarding the scout session, because it's a quiz that we're going to be doing, a very different quiz. So do watch out for that as well. Okay, well done, Hussein, for mentioning that you'll watch some videos about Ibn Khaldun. So yep, absolutely, it's something someone to look out for. Jazakallahu khairan, everyone, and hopefully you'll benefit. For those of you who joined late, I will, inshallah, we'll keep this saved on YouTube as we do with all of our videos. Do share this as well, inshallah. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Subhanallah wa bihamdihi, subhanakallahumma wa bihamdik. Ashhadu an la ilaha illa anta astaghfiruka wa atubu ilayk.